The news hit like a thunderclap, reverberating across the vast Canadian prairies. It was the kind of announcement that farmers dread, but few ever truly expect to face in their lifetimes. On August 12, 2025, China imposed a staggering 75.8% tariff on all Canadian canola seed imports. The decision was swift, severe, and left little room for negotiation or preparation. For years, China had been Canada's largest canola customer, buying millions of tons annually. Now, with a single policy, that market was all but erased. Overnight, Canada's $5 billion canola trade with China was effectively shut down. Trains and trucks that once bustled with activity now sat idle, and grain elevators echoed with an uneasy silence. The ripple effects were immediate and far-reaching. For prairie farmers just days away from harvest, it was a gut punch. Years of work, planning, and investment suddenly at risk. Many had already taken out loans, purchased equipment, and made commitments based on expected sales to China. Now, all of that was in jeopardy. Canola futures crashed, with the ICE November contract dropping 6.5% to a 4-month low. The markets reacted instantly, reflecting the uncertainty and fear gripping the industry. For many, the numbers on the screen translated directly into lost income and mounting anxiety. The Canola Council of Canada called it what it was, a door slammed shut on their biggest customer. In press conferences and emergency meetings, industry leaders struggled to find answers and offer hope to those affected. Families who'd farmed for generations now faced an uncertain future, their golden fields suddenly a financial liability. The pride of a successful harvest was replaced by the fear of bills unpaid and dreams deferred. For many, the farm was more than a business, it was a legacy at risk. The tariff wasn't just a political move, it threatened the economic backbone of rural communities across the prairies. Local businesses, equipment dealers, and small-town shops all braced for the impact, knowing that when farmers suffer, the whole community feels the pain. Shock quickly turned to urgent questions. What now? How would farmers survive the fallout? Community halls filled with anxious discussions, as neighbors leaned on each other for support and searched for solutions in the face of an unprecedented crisis. The scale of the tariff made clear this was no minor dispute, but a calculated move by Beijing to inflict maximum pain. It was a message sent not just to Canada, but to the world, about the power of trade as a political weapon. Canada's canola industry, built over decades of hard work and international cooperation, was now in crisis mode. Industry leaders, government officials, and farmers scrambled to respond, searching for new markets and emergency relief as a once stable trade relationship lay in tatters. This tariff didn't come out of nowhere. It was the result of a series of escalating tensions and policy decisions that had been brewing beneath the surface for months, if not years. Its roots stretched back a year, to Canada's 2024 decision to impose tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles, a move that sent shockwaves through international trade circles and signaled a new era of economic assertiveness from Ottawa. China saw Canada's move as protectionist, a direct challenge to its growing dominance in the electric vehicle market. In response, Beijing acted swiftly and decisively, launching an anti-dumping investigation into Canadian canola, one of Canada's most valuable agricultural exports. The retaliation didn't stop there. Soon after, China slapped duties on canola oil and meal, targeting not just raw crops, but the entire value chain, from farm to processing plant. The message was clear. Canada's tariffs on EVs would be met with economic pain in another sector. It was a calculated move, designed to hit Canada where it hurt most, and to remind policymakers that trade is a two-way street. Canadian officials and farmers rejected China's claims of dumping, insisting their success was built on quality, innovation, and years of hard work, not on unfair subsidies or market manipulation. For many, the accusations felt like a smokescreen for a much bigger power play. But the dispute was never really about canola prices. It was about leverage in a broader trade chess match. Each side maneuvered carefully, using tariffs and investigations as pieces on a global board. Each step from Beijing ratcheted up the pressure, culminating in the devastating August 2025 tariff. The stakes grew higher with every announcement, and uncertainty rippled through both economies. The lesson was stark. Actions in one trade sector can trigger severe consequences in another. In the interconnected world of global commerce, no industry is truly isolated from the ripple effects of international disputes. Canada's canola was now a pawn in a much larger geopolitical game, its fate tied to decisions made far beyond the fields where it was grown. Canada's response was swift and united. Federal ministers condemned the tariff as unjust, but kept the door open for dialogue. Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe urged Ottawa to consider dropping EV tariffs to de-escalate, highlighting the tension between principle and economic survival. Industry groups like the Canola Council and Growers Association rallied, warning of a price crash and fighting back against China's dumping claims. Behind the scenes, officials launched high-level talks and explored a WTO challenge. Canada's message to the world: it stood for fair trade and wouldn't be bullied, but sought a peaceful resolution. The crisis forced rare unity between government and industry, all focused on protecting farmers and the national interest. The stakes were clear. Tens of thousands of livelihoods hung in the balance. For farmers, the tariff was a direct hit. Months of investment and hope were wiped out with a single announcement. The timing was brutal. Just as a bumper crop was ready for harvest, the biggest market vanished. Prices collapsed, and questions mounted. Should they harvest? Store the crop? How to pay the bills? Yet despair quickly gave way to determination. Farmers used to adversity began strategizing, talking to neighbors, co-ops, and industry groups. Many gambled on storing their canola, hoping for a market rebound or new buyers. It was risky, but it showed the grit and resilience at the heart of Canadian agriculture. Communities pulled together, trusting leaders to fight for them. Farmers focused on what they could control, harvesting quality crops and managing costs. Their resolve became the foundation for Canada's broader response. The crisis was a wake-up call. Canada could no longer rely on a single customer. Suddenly, diversification became urgent. Trade missions were fast-tracked, targeting Southeast Asia, Japan, Mexico, and the EU. The goal: build a web of smaller, stable markets to reduce risk and dependence. This meant more than just selling canola. It required building trust, understanding new regulations, and promoting Canadian quality. Early wins came as new contracts were signed and shipments sent to unfamiliar ports. While these markets couldn't replace China overnight, each new buyer was a step toward stability. The industry was forced to become nimble and strategic, planting the seeds for a more resilient future. Out of crisis, a new blueprint for Canadian canola was taking shape. With exports in jeopardy, Canada turned inward. How could more canola be used at home? The answer: biofuels. The crisis sparked a surge in investment in renewable diesel and sustainable aviation fuel made from canola oil. Saskatchewan led the charge, expanding biofuel plants and creating a stable domestic market for farmers. This shift supported prices, created rural jobs, and helped Canada meet climate goals. The canola industry was now part of the clean energy revolution, powering vehicles and planes with prairie-grown fuel. The investment wasn't just a reaction, it was a leap toward innovation and energy security. Farmers saw new opportunities less tied to foreign politics. The biofuel boom turned surplus canola into a national asset, transforming crisis into opportunity. As Canada diversified, a key question emerged: could China replace Canadian canola? Australia, the next biggest exporter, was re-entering the Chinese market, but its capacity couldn't match Canada's volume. China faced tough choices: reduce demand, find substitutes, or pay more for alternatives. The tariff hurt Canada, but it also squeezed Chinese processors and disrupted supply chains. This gave Canada subtle leverage. China's move was costly for both sides. The global oilseed market is interconnected. Any shift ripples worldwide. The mutual dependence made a return to the negotiating table more likely, even if reconciliation would be complex. As summer 2025 ended, the future of Canada-China canola trade was uncertain. The 75.8% tariff was provisional. A final decision was due by September, but could be delayed. This left a sliver of hope. The tariff might be reduced or lifted, depending on negotiations. Many saw the move as a bargaining chip, not a permanent break. Meanwhile, China launched probes into other Canadian products, deepening the diplomatic challenge. Canada had to balance defending its interest with maintaining global trade relationships. Farmers and industry leaders pressed on with diversification and biofuel strategies, building resilience. The only certainty: the canola industry would never be the same. Looking back from August 30, 2025, The canola crisis became a defining turning point for Canada's agricultural sector. What began as a period of uncertainty and hardship ultimately sparked a wave of transformation across the country's prairies. Forced to confront its vulnerabilities, the industry emerged not only stronger, but also more innovative and less dependent on any single market. Farmers and producers quickly adapted, embracing new technologies and sustainable practices to ensure their livelihoods. Diversification paid off. New trade relationships with countries in Europe, Asia, and the Middle East made the sector more stable and less exposed to political shocks. Canadian canola found its way to new tables and industries around the world. Investment in biofuels created a powerful domestic market, linking agriculture to clean energy and national security. Canola became a key ingredient in Canada's push for renewable energy, reducing reliance on fossil fuels and opening new economic opportunities. Farmers gained new options and stability, knowing their crop powered both food and fuel. This diversification meant more predictable incomes and a renewed sense of pride in their work. The crisis proved Canadian resilience and unity, transforming adversity into opportunity. Communities came together, sharing knowledge and resources and supporting each other through the transition. While the dispute with China remains unresolved, Canada's canola industry is now built on a firmer foundation. Investments in infrastructure and logistics have made the supply chain more efficient and reliable. The golden fields of the prairies stand as a symbol, not just of a proud past, but of a resilient, thriving future. They represent the spirit of innovation and determination that defines Canadian agriculture. Out of crisis, Canada found a way to grow, innovate, and lead, showing the world that even in the face of uncertainty, hope and progress can flourish.